Hi, and welcome to another episode of Azure Innovation Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Kennedy. Thank you for joining us in this podcast series where we speak to cloud-first companies, technology leaders, and venture capitalists on all things AI related. Today, there are numerous generative AI models on the market for a wide variety of use cases such as customer support, content generation, and speech. Of all the model providers, the company which has arguably had the biggest impact on generative AI landscape is OpenAI. With its popular ChatGPT application and cutting-edge GPT-based models, OpenAI has rapidly become the leader in AI technology. And as we all know, Microsoft has a special partnership with OpenAI. OpenAI runs on Azure's popular infrastructure and application platform services, including Azure Kubernetes Services and Azure Cosmos DB. Most importantly, Azure provides the Azure Open AI services that enable developers to build and deploy advanced AI models using OpenAI's powerful language models. Many customers across several verticals, including healthcare, financial, and professional services, use Azure OpenAI to build their Gen AI apps. CXOs and developers often ask me about Microsoft's OpenAI strategy. In today's episode, we will discuss with Ravi Sudhakar, who is the Director of Azure OpenAI Business Strategy for Microsoft, on this very topic. Welcome, Ravi.
Good morning, Ross. I'm happy to be here on your podcast.
I'm grateful to have you. You and I have had many chances to work together, so why don't we dive straight in? To get started, can you please tell our audience what are common customer use cases you've seen built on Azure OpenAI?
Absolutely, Ross. Clearly, Gen AI is making a massive impact on how companies are operating today. I'm also the lucky ones who have the front seat to watch all of this unfold. As a part of my job, I get to see many unique use cases being deployed across the globe. I'm already seeing massive evolution since the last year, starting the way the content is being created to how it is being discovered. Everything has changed drastically. Broadly speaking, I've seen customers using Azure OpenAI in one of the four large groups. The first one being content generation. And it spans across all modalities of image, video, audio, and text. This is where I see organizations creating content automatically. This in the past has been a manual and a tedious process. For example, CarMax today has streamlined the creation of text summaries for its car research pages. Second big use case which I'm seeing is discovering content. It's primarily a knowledge management solution, but solution is on rocket engines. For example, Harvey.ai has built a legal AI platform for legal professionals. With Azure OpenAI, they're able to help lawyers to draft documents, conduct legal research, and a similar level of depth can be used for medical research and any other company for that matter. The third category, which I see, is AI conversational experiences. Broadly speaking, companies are either revamping or building new experiences for their customers. I remember during Build 2024, Etsy presented something called guided search for customers. I'm already a big fan of Etsy. Now with guided search, I'm more hooked. It helps me get whatever I want, and I want it faster. The fourth category of use cases is around insights, simulations, and automations. These simulations and predictions are incredibly hard to build. In a way, people are using AI to make AI better. For instance, Commerce.ai the other day was explaining as to how they're trying to bridge the gap between information to insight, from insight to automation using Azure OpenAI. And there are plenty of simulation, correction, and transfer learning opportunities here. While I described one of these four categories, but there are many more. And we are learning and building these scenarios day in and day out with our customers.
That's incredible. That's powerful. I appreciate that, Ravi. So if it sounds like I've got this correct, it's content generation, content discovery, conversational AI, and AI simulations are the primary model uses you're seeing. So if that's the case, then what are you seeing our customers do when it comes to the models themselves?
There is definitely a trend towards multimodal and multi-model. Let me elaborate a little bit more. A few months ago, majority of our customers were using Azure OpenAI as the only model. But incrementally, we are seeing more and more customers choosing multiple models. Today, we see more scenarios with GPT-4o, GPT-4o Mini, Llama 5.3, or Mistral, or Cohere. Depending upon what helps them in the use case. This is primarily based on a few things. One is definitely cost, but the model skill for the task is becoming even more relevant. And this is rapidly evolving field. Now we are seeing use cases which have 3 or even more models in the same use case. The multimodality, such as videos, audio, apart from text, has become a very critical factor in decision making. And more use cases are being developed at the same time with more and more models being used within the same organizations.
I like that. I like how you pointed out it's not just about the cost, it's also about the model's ability to scale to the use case that you're deploying it to.
Yeah.
And as customers evaluate models and use them in production, they need flexibility and cost effectiveness. How can companies use Azure OpenAI while maintaining that flexibility and keeping costs in production low?
I see this question a lot of times and various different ways. There are different ways in which we can address this, and it depends upon who's using it, what are they intending to do. Before I delve into it, I want to give you a very quick update to your audience about what is happening in our space right now. Today, Azure OpenAI is available more broadly across the world. It's available in more regions than ever. The infrastructure improvements have made it 4 to 7 times faster. Our latency is reduced. We now have fine-tuning options and higher default quotas for customers to buy provision throughput capacity. I'll explain all of this as well. On the other hand, they can do all of this from their Azure portal. Let me elaborate two different pricing scenarios which we offer in our services. One is pay-as-you-go, and second is provision throughput. Pay-as-you-go is a deployment perfect for scenarios where I'm starting my use case. It is incredible for a low volume workloads, use cases which could be spiky. We offer in various different ways. There are 3 different levels of flexibility which are available. First one is global batch. This is where applications run in the backend and you don't care about latency, data residency requirements, and it saves a lot of money for any use case being built on this particular scenario. The second type is pay-as-you-go, which is a global standard. It's probably the first things the customers will try on Azure platform. It's called global because the traffic may be routed anywhere in the world, and it's perfect for customers who do not have data processing or data residency requirements today. And the third type is pay-as-you-go, which is a standard pay-as-you-go. This is the same thing as global standard, but caters to the customers who need their apps to be in a specific region, for the reasons such as data residency and data privacy and stuff like that. This particular solution gives access to customers on regional pricing as well. So those are the 3 different ways in which you can use pay-as-you-go. We covered the types of pays per token methods. For customers who need regional access, very high throughputs, predictable throughputs, we offer provisional throughput capacity as well. This is where, although it removes the pay per call flexibility, it offers real-time scoring for large, consistent volumes. This option is best for customers who are building production-ready applications, and I've seen many customers see excellent cost savings using this. So far, I don't think I've seen a unicorn yet who knows exactly what their traffic line is, and it coincides exactly how much of PTUs they procure for the company. And I assume such perfect forecasts are very difficult to get. This is where I see mixed scenarios very often, where use cases are able to use provision throughput in some scenarios, and they use it to the maximum extent possible, and then cut over to pay per token for any additional spike which the traffic sees. This is also where the developers are building the app, and the business owner who runs the campaign and the IT owner who's maintaining the application can use PTUs to the fullest extent possible without introducing any latency, affecting any kind of throughput, and switch over to pay per token if the load increases. To do this better, our tech community blog has amazing resources which can help you in your app design. Things like where to put the load balancer, how to use the circuit breaker, how to use the token limit policy, and things as such are available on our blog, which you can read up and design your applications as well.
Oh, that's incredibly powerful. So there's models that accommodate virtually every scenario based on things like data residency and latency times and other considerations. I think probably the most common question I get is, why would I choose Azure for the latest OpenAI or any other model for that matter?
Oh yeah, and this is probably my 10th year working with customers on Azure, and there might be 3 or 4 things which have assured my customers and Microsoft customers time and time again. It's complete platform. Things just seamlessly unify. Let me give you an example. If you're a developer, you're building a web app, you can scale it yourself. Use globally scalable database without having to deploy a single infrastructure component. Everything you can do from a single screen and a single piece of code. The same can be containerized, shipped to your IT team, and they can scale it for you if you would want it. So everything seamlessly unifies for you. Second, which I've seen customers appreciate, is the confidence in the platform. Customers trust this platform because they know that the data is properly stored, privacy standards will be maintained. The sense of security and the assurance of compliance is massive for many businesses. And the third area is just sheer innovation. And this is where Azure has consistently pushed boundaries every time. Today, a developer can innovate by coding less with GitHub Copilot. Pick up Azure OpenAI or any other 1600 models which are available on Azure platform. Use our globally scalable AI search, or even PG Vector, or use Pinecone. Pick a database of their choice, SQL Server to PostgreSQL. Deploy the application to either Kubernetes cluster or use Azure App Services. And all of these services are inbuilt into Azure today, which helps our customers to deploy amazing applications, which I've seen in the past.
I appreciate that, Ravi. It's interesting. You think about it, the model that you choose for OpenAI is critical to your success, but there are two earlier decisions that have to be made. One is the developer platform and one is the cloud, which your application is going to be fundamentally dependent on. So can you tell us more about Azure services that customers use to run their Gen AI apps at scale?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, very large percentage of our customers are using RAG applications. They're kind of building either a RAG application or a hybrid AI systems. I mean, people are deploying models on their phone, people are deploying models in their car or audio system, people are deploying this on laptops and so on and so forth. When somebody is building a RAG application, which is retrieval augmented generation application, or any kind of hybrid AI application, the expectation from the platform have almost remained the same, and which is why I was talking about those three areas where Azure benefits quite a bit. It's always about scalability, reliability, and cost efficiency, which is where Azure App Services, Azure databases shine the most. I've seen numerous deployments run on container apps. I've seen customers using Azure Kubernetes services and our scalable database offerings such as Cosmos DB or our managed PostgreSQL. They even use managed MySQL or managed SQL Server. Coupling this with provision throughput, which we explained earlier, which can, in a couple of weeks, you will be able to deploy a massive applications, getting you all the flexibility which you need for your use cases, getting all the cost efficiencies which you need for your applications. Of course, there are many unique deployments, and every deployment is special, and they have a signature of a specific customer on this. But based on the common deployment patterns, we have built a solution accelerator that's available free of cost on GitHub. This includes Azure App Services, where app is deployed. It uses Azure AI Search for vectorization and indexes. The data is stored in Cosmos DB. It also uses API Management Gateway to manage APIs across Azure OpenAI provision throughput, or even pay-as-you-go, or any other model as a service which we offer on our platform.
So a really robust set of tools to support the developer. I guess when you think about that, what are the different ways in which developers can start building their Gen AI apps on Azure? If they were to begin now, what are sort of those things you would ask them to consider?
Oh yeah, absolutely. First of all, Azure OpenAI and all other models are available for every Azure customers on the planet. It is under the same terms which are governing their subscriptions. So which means the product terms and the code of conduct is the same. So every developer, every organization can now access Azure OpenAI from their own subscriptions. Only if the customer wants to modify the content filters or abuse monitoring, they have to fill a form and request as such. But otherwise, it's available for everybody. With access to Azure OpenAI API, I highly recommend customers to use our AI Studio experience. This is one-stop shop for deploying, managing, monitoring Azure OpenAI deployments from a single place. You will also see 1,600 plus models, which I talked about earlier, being available on Azure AI Studio. You'll be able to build an app, you'll be able to deploy it without having to write any piece of code. And there, you can also change content safety rules. They can create and validate multiple prompts and connect to various different data sources in one studio. Of course, if you're an advanced developer, you can directly jump on to Azure OpenAI API and get started with the applications. I had mentioned this before. We have got a lot of starter kits available on GitHub, which you can use and get up to speed very quickly.
That's great. So the tools are there as well. Ravi, as always, I have come to appreciate your thought leadership and your support here at Microsoft, and of course on this conversation as well. It's amazing to me to see how customers are using Azure OpenAI to build their businesses and transform their customers' experiences. I'm excited to see where we take things next. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to deep dive into the Azure OpenAI platform more, I recommend you check out this blog that we put together for you. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Ross.